Hi everybody, this vehicle is a 2011 Ford Fiesta, and today I'm changing the right rear shock. Book time calls for a half hour, so let's get started. So there's two bolts up here that hold the top part of the shock into the body, and I'm going to remove them with a 10mm socket. And here's what that bolt looks like. Now, when you remove the two upper bolts first, and you don't have anything supporting the lower control arm, you're going to notice that the whole thing is going to pop down. So if you're doing this on the ground, you're going to want to make sure that you put something under here to support the bottom part of the frame. Otherwise, this will get pretty close to the ground, and you might have a hard time getting in here to push it back up. So in my case, I'm lucky I'm in a shop and the car is on a lift, so I can just lift the whole car up, bring a frame under it, and then set the body down, which will compress this spring and line everything back up. And then next, I'm going to remove the lower shock bolt, which is a 15mm. Once that's out, then I can just remove the entire shock assembly. So here's what that looks like up top. So my replacement shock I picked up at AutoZone. Here's the part number for it. Cost about $43. And this replacement shock is basically just the shock by itself. So it just comes with the piston. And it does not come with the dust shield, the jounce bumper, and the aluminum mounting block. So I'll have to transfer these parts from the old shock to the new shock. First, I'm just going to cut the strap off. And then this little plastic cap actually has a lock nut inside of it. So you don't want to lose that, because you can use it to replace the one that's on the old shock. So just make sure that's screwed on, and then wiggle off the plastic cap, and you can take off the lock nut. Now this is a nylon lock nut, which I really like these. They're very secure and rarely ever have problems with them. However, the Ford lock nut has a thin wall hex, and it's also a lock nut, and I really like this one too. So because of that, I'm going to use the Ford lock nut instead of the new one that comes with the new shock. But here's how we do this. Set the old shock into the vise, like so. And then to remove this assembly, you have to use two tools. First, I'm going to use a 10mm speed wrench, because it'll just make my job a little bit easier. But if I try using this by itself, then the whole thing just spins. So I also have to use an adjustable wrench to get on these two flats and hold that still. And then the nut will break free and you can loosen it up. And then eventually it just gets so loose that you can take it off by hand. And that's why I like this Ford lock nut. And that's why I'm going to reuse it. So once that's done, pop this off, and here's what this looks like. Put my flashlight on here, you can see what's down on the inside. It's the bottom of the jounce bumper. And then you've got the dust shield, the bumper, and the mounting block. So I'm going to stick on the old parts. Okay, there we go. Now put on the Ford nut again. And we'll just do the same thing in reverse. Because if I try to tighten it, you see the shaft turns, so just hold that with the wrench and run that nut down. Okay, there we go. Now also just to CYA, which this is totally not necessary, but I'm going to apply just a small amount of anti-seize. Now you might be wondering, why are you putting that on after the nut's already on there? Well, I'm doing that because just in case this steel decides to rust over the next, I don't know, 5 or 8 or 10 years, I don't want any issues with taking this apart. So just a little bit of insurance. All right, cool. Now it's ready to be installed. All right, so for the install, I have to make sure I line up this center shaft with its hole in the body. So just kind of look in there, line it up and hold it in place. Then once that's in, take my 10mm bolt. Kind of hold it there, and then do the same thing on the other side. Now for tightening these top bolts, the torque value, is 18 foot-pounds. So it's not that tight. So I'm going to tighten these by hand using a ratchet wrench because I don't want to over torque these bolts. There we go. That's it. Just run them down and snug them up. Okay, now we can deal with the bottom. So this bottom is going to be a little bit more tricky to deal with because I had nothing here supporting the lower control arm to prevent the spring from pushing the axle down. But no big deal. I'm on a lift, so I can just put something under here and then lower the car, which will press up on the spring, and I can line everything back up. So if you're doing this at home in a driveway or something, you'll want to make sure that you have something under here to support the spring before you disassemble this shock. So I'm going to use a big wooden I-beam. A little bit higher. Kind of set that right about there. All right, let's make sure that this is lined up to go in the slot. And I'll just do this slowly because I kind of can't see it from where the lift handle is. A little bit more. Just a smidge. Yeah, that looks pretty darn good there. So, I'll just push that in. Ah, look at that. Nice. All right, so let me just run that in with the impact real quick. And of course, I'm using a torque stick so I don't over tighten this bolt. There we go. All right, now I can pull out the block, and then I can torque this to the proper amount, which is 85 foot-pounds. Well, hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me while I replace the rear shocks on this 2011 Ford Fiesta. Well, if you have any questions or any comments, post them below. And as always, thanks for watching. And if you like my videos, please give a thumbs up, and also please subscribe.